Every single year it seems like there's a new hottest thing, a new species of reptile that really blows up. So what about next year? Today we're going over the top 5 newly popular reptiles of 2022. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles, stick around. Before we begin, I want to say thank you to this video sponsor, Skillshare, and let's talk about last year, because last year we did a video like this, the hottest reptiles of 2021 or whatever we called it, and we made some pretty bold predictions, things like pink-tongued skinks, Dumerul's boas, Antaresia, and I think most of them have come true, especially the Dumerul's boa. Every time I go to a reptile expo, it's kind of the same thing. Hey man, I watch your channel on YouTube, do you know where I can find a Dumerul's boa? And they seem like they go pretty darn fast. So this year, I think there's 5, or next year I should say, in 2022, there are 5 reptiles that are really gonna blow up. So let's just begin, starting off with number 5, Schneider Skinks. Now I think this is a toss-up. I think there's really 2 skinks that are gonna blow up in 2022. Schneider Skinks and Emerald Tree Skinks. Because of this guy.
I was gluing a glue stick to a glue stick.
But neither here nor there. I think both are amazing species. I just think Schneider Skinks might be better for more people because they're not as arboreal. There is a little bit of a challenge in setting up a more arboreal enclosure than a terrestrial one. And Schneider Skinks, although they will use area to climb if you provide it to them, they're mostly a terrestrial skink. In fact, they do a lot of digging into the substrate. If I look around noon in my enclosure for my 2 Schneider Skinks, they are nowhere to be found. They are hiding. In the morning and kind of at night before the lights come out, that's when they come out. And that's where they're gonna be basking on the rock and things like that. But generally you'll find them those parts of the day, and the rest of the day they'll be hiding. With that said, wiggle your fingers on the substrate and they're gonna pop right out. They are hilarious. Schneider Skinks are super fun to feed. They're mostly insectivores, although some people say they're good at getting them to eat plant matter. I've never had that. They are omnivores, but mine are mainly going to be eating insects, dusted with calcium, D3, things like that. Do your research, of course. Care guide right here if you want to know all about Schneider Skinks in detail. But these guys, I think, because of the way that they look, being so beautiful, because they're so easy to handle, and they are little clowns. The reason I didn't bring one out, I wanted to have Bonnie and Clyde mine on me and handling them during the video, but to be honest, it takes 3 times as long to shoot with them because they're little clowns. They'll be up on your head, they'll kind of jump off onto a terrarium, they'll be in your shirt, they're crazy, they are everywhere, they are so much fun. If I am ever thinking I want to actively handle a reptile, those are the ones I go to get. They're not ridiculous in terms of their weight because they're tiny, so it doesn't wear you out like a Burmese python would, but also they're not boring because they don't just sit there like a rock like some ball pythons might. They will be moving, and they always want to get to the top of my head for some reason. So Schneider Skinks are freaking awesome, and they're gonna blow up in 2022. Number 4, I want to ruin this list with an amphibian right off the hop. No pun intended, because we're talking about Amazon milk frogs. Now, we've got an enclosure behind me here. It's got 4 Amazon milk frogs. I'm gonna upgrade them and do something a little bit bigger with more height, because in the wild, where you're gonna find them, in northern South America, you'll find them higher in the canopy. Where I have them in here is only about 18 inches. The point that I'm making is you can keep several of them in the same enclosure, which a lot of people really like, including myself. At the end of the day, we keep reptiles for the most part to keep ourselves entertained while giving them the best possible life. The good news is, it's really easy to take care of Amazon milk frogs. They're a medium-sized tree frog. They are called milk frogs because they secrete this white, sticky, smelly substance that is poisonous from their skin. Good news is, they don't really do this in captivity basically ever, and that slime, that substance, is not dangerous to humans. It's fun to watch them interact with each other. They hop around, they go crazy over food. If you want to talk about a feeding response that isn't going to be dangerous for you or uncomfortable if you get bit, talk about Amazon milk frogs. Not only that, but their insides are blue, including the inside of their mouth. So when they're trying to bite your finger on the outside of the glass, it's hilarious because it looks like the Cookie Monster trying to eat your finger. And as mentioned before, if it does bite you for whatever reason, you're feeding crickets or whatever, it's a frog mouth. You're not gonna feel it. It's not gonna hurt you. It's not gonna break skin, where other animals who have crazy feeding responses might be more uncomfortable if they get you. These super hardy frogs do really well in more arboreal type enclosures where they have lots of places to hide, perches. They really like cork rounds to hide in the cork round with maybe some moss in there. Keep it humid, of course. If you want, we'll do an entire care guide. Do you want an entire care guide about Amazon milk frogs? Hit the thumbs up. And also, I'm gonna do a cool community build because these guys do really well in community setups if you pick the right species. But hit subscribe and we'll talk about that another day. Yeah, just to finish this out with milk frogs, I find them usually between $60 and $100-ish, sometimes a little bit more depending on the age, but these guys are pretty prolific, and if you breed, you generally get a lot of tadpoles, which turns into a lot of froglets. The reptile shop near me had 88 of them in one go, so not that difficult to find, but I do think they're going to increase in popularity, kind of almost to the point where the white tree frogs are, which have gained popularity, but anyway, let's move on to the next one. Before we move on, I want to say thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. If you are a creative person looking to be more creative, to brush up on the skills that make you creative, Skillshare is an all-in-one learning platform that can take you from whatever level you are to wherever you want to be. Whether you're a weekend warrior, you're a hobbyist, you're a professional, or just starting out, Skillshare has a list of classes just for you. We're talking about everything from languages to web development. If you want to learn how to make logos, make better videos, be more influential on social media, or even just learn a language, like we said before. Something that I've been doing is taking some Spanish classes on Skillshare so that when I go to Central America next time, I can understand what they're talking about. And I'll tell you what, I was never good at learning languages in school, but with Skillshare, it makes it a lot easier, keeps my attention a lot better. And overall, I really like that most of the classes are under 1 hour. I'm really busy. I don't have time to get into these really long classes that take weeks. With Skillshare, you don't have to worry about that. So if you're looking for something new to help you on your creative journey, right now the first 1,000 subscribers of this channel to hit the link below get 1 free month of Skillshare. I am so glad that I signed up. It's been a wealth of knowledge, so helpful not only for this channel, but for my hobbies and just learning in general. Skillshare, thank you very much for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to the list. Number 3, this is 4. Number 3, and something we have never talked about on the channel before, carpet chameleons. I personally think that these are going to blow up for a very specific reason. Chameleons are popular, but chameleons aren't very hardy. A lot of the times, chameleons can be difficult. If you get a carpet chameleon that was bred in captivity, it turns out, or from the research I've done anyway, talking to people who breed these in captivity, it's like night and day. And that's the difference. I think that's why they're not as popular as your main staples. Your panther chameleons, your veiled chameleons, even Jackson's chameleons, things like that. Just because they have a bad reputation for crashing. And that does happen. And when they come in from Madagascar, which is where they're from, a lot of the times they kind of go belly up very quickly. The difference is if you get a captive bred one, let's suppose that an animal comes in with eggs in it, the eggs drop, they're born in captivity, they will thrive. It's like 2 different species from what other people have told me. I've been watching a lot of videos about them. Guys like Frank Payne makes cool videos about them. And the reason is, although I'm not super interested in keeping a chameleon myself, I think if I were to keep one, it would probably be a carpet chameleon. Not only because of the look, because it stays very, very small, just ease of care and them being so small, and the fact that from the breeders that I talk to who have actual experience, they recommend a glass enclosure rather than a screen enclosure, which keeps humidity and heat in a lot better, and that's kind of a challenge with a lot of conventional chameleon enclosures that are screen. So neither here nor there. I'm not getting one today. Do your research before you get one. I have been researching for a while. I just think because there's more captive breeding happening, especially in the US, the UK, places like that, but there's not in Canada. If I were to get chameleons, it would be these ones just to preserve the species, because we can bring them in from Madagascar right now, but there have been times where exports have been halted, and who knows, maybe Madagascar just shuts the door, kind of like Australia did, where it's very rare, if ever, that they export animals. And in that case, we're not going to really have any here because it's very rare to see them bred in captivity. With that said, they only live to about a year or 2 years or maybe 3 years. They're super short-lived, which means they get to sexual maturity very quickly, and you can breed them pretty much right off the hop. So for many reasons, I think they're going to blow up. I think they're an overlooked chameleon species, and something, if you ever saw a chameleon in my collection, which I don't know that you ever will, it'll probably be a carpet chameleon. They're pretty awesome. Number 2 on the list, something that I was going to include last year, And I think this year especially, they're gonna go wild. Cave geckos. Chinese cave geckos are beautiful. They're similar enough to a leopard gecko or even an African fat-tailed gecko that I don't think it's outlandish for people to want them, and because of their beauty as well. So I think they're a beginner level species, but the difference is they like it cooler and humider than other species. I think the difficulty is breeding them, because some people have no problem at all, and then there's people like me who I could not get my trio to breed for the world. It was for sure 2 females and 1 male. I could not. So I don't have them in my collection anymore. I've let or loaned them out for someone else who is more experienced with gecko breeding to breed them. But that's why I got them in the first place, is because there's a lot of demand, but not a lot of supply. And when the supply goes up and people start to see them more commonly in pet stores, expos, things like that, I think, boom, I think it's going to skyrocket the popularity because they're so easy, they're insectivores, easy to care for. They do well in bioactive enclosures. I think the thing with leopard geckos is they like it so arid that you don't see this stereotypical kind of tropical type look, where with these you can, and because they're cave geckos and they do climb rock faces and things like that, you can give them a little bit of height that they'll actually use, and they do really well being cohabbed. So for a lot of reasons, I think they're really gonna blow up in 2022. And number 1 most popular, newly popular reptile in 2022, in my opinion, Dwarf Giants. What I mean is constrictor snakes that are normally huge, but the dwarf variety. So super dwarf reticulated pythons, dwarf Burmese pythons, even dwarf boa species, I think are gonna skyrocket. The thing is, a lot of people don't have room in their collection for a snake that gets over 8 feet, or it's illegal for them to keep. We just did a video about most illegal reptiles here and the substitutions. Spoiler alert, in that list were huge pythons and huge boas and things like that that come in smaller shapes and forms and sizes, not shapes. They're spaghetti, but you know what I'm saying. And as an example, a big reticulated python will get over 20 feet. You can get super dwarfs that stay 6 to 8 if they're males. So it's such a big difference in size, especially considering big, huge reticulated python can get easily over 200 pounds, where the super dwarf version, it's gonna be less than 10 pounds or maybe 15. Like what I'm saying is it's going to be miles less. He's crazy, Spider-Man. It's going to be miles easier, is what I'm trying to say, to get them where you want them in terms of their size, or to get an animal of that beauty, or maybe even morph, or intelligence, we're talking about retics, or berms even for that matter, but in a smaller package. And things like Hog Island boas even too, which are going to get 5-ish feet. A regular BCI, boa constrictor imperator, the common boa, the one that you find for $50 all day long at your reptile store, they're going to get big. They can get 6, 8, even 10 feet sometimes. Outliers even bigger. We're talking about boa constrictor constrictors, the BCCs, the true red tails, they get even bigger a lot of the time. So a lot of people want a smaller package. I think that boas are awesome because they're semi-arboreal, and if you get a smaller one, you don't need a massive enclosure. So it solves a lot of problems, and I think people are gonna come on to this. I think that more people are watching videos like this one, and other creators who are much larger and more influential than me, who are preaching this, and I think it's a better option for most people. Most people shouldn't keep a giant 20-foot snake, in my opinion. Most people would be better with that species of snake in a much smaller package. So there you go. Those are your top 5 blow up, gonna be huge in 22 type of reptile. What do you think? Do you think I got it right? Do you think I got it wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, if you don't mind, please hit the like button, hit subscribe. It would be so helpful. It helps this channel more than you could ever know. And speaking of helpful, Patreon. You guys are freaking amazing. You guys get videos early, you know about the bioactive builds that we've been doing, you know about extra reptiles in my collection that we haven't really talked about all that much. You're gonna get a sneak peek at the reptile room tour weeks before it goes on the channel. You're gonna get Costa Rica part 2 before it goes on the channel. All that and more for as little as $1 a month. Patreon, you guys are freaking amazing. Thank you for all you do. And that's it. Because I do videos twice a week, that means that I'll see you on Monday.